Hello, and welcome to Mystical Tutor. These are a series of 5 to 15 minute classes designed to help improve your knowledge of the rules and policies of the Magic the Gathering Judge program. This lesson will focus on the core concepts of priority and the stack. In Magic, we need a system to indicate when each player can take game actions. Without it, we have chaos, arguments over who cast a spell or when an ability happened. This system is called priority. This means that there is never a point in the game where both players can take an action at the same time. Priority is like a talking stick. It gets passed back and forth between players, and you're not allowed to take actions without it. The active player receives priority whenever a spell or ability is put on the stack, whenever a spell or ability resolves, or after a turn-based action is performed. The non-active player receives priority whenever the active player is done taking their actions and passes priority. The active player is the person whose turn it is. Shockingly, the non-active player is the other player. The active player receives priority because something happened and the game gave it to them. If the active player chooses to do nothing, they pass priority, and the non-active player receives it. If the active player takes an action, they receive priority again. If the non-active player takes an action, casting a spell, activating an ability, or using a special action, the active player receives priority immediately afterwards. If the non-active player chooses to not take an action, they pass priority. Then, since both players have passed priority without taking an action, if there is a spell or ability on the stack, the top object on the stack resolves. If there isn't a spell or ability on the stack, the step or phase ends. As discussed in the lesson, Permanents, Cards, States, and Zones, the stack is a zone where spells and abilities go while they are waiting to resolve. The stack keeps track of the order of objects that are added to it. Each time an object is put on the stack, it is put on top of all objects already there. An easy way to visualize this is to imagine a pile of cards with the most recent spell on the top. When you cast a card, the first thing you do is move it to the stack. The card will physically move to the stack and will become a spell. It is not a spell anywhere else. The card will physically move to the stack and will become a spell. It is not a spell anywhere else. Even instants and sorceries are not spells, unless they're on the stack. Abilities don't have a card associated with them, so they don't have physical representation. Abilities on the stack are not spells. Each spell on the stack has all the characteristics of the card associated with it. For example, Siege Rhino is a green, white, black creature spell with converted mana cost 4. Abilities only have the text of the ability that created it. However, the game knows the characteristics of the object that created the ability. The controller of a spell or ability is the person who cast the spell, activated the ability, or controls the card with the triggered ability. Spells and abilities leave the stack in one of 4 ways. 1. Being moved to any other zone by an effect. For example, Venser, Shaper Savant, can return a spell to its owner's hand. 2. Being countered by a spell or ability, such as Dissolve. 3. Being countered by a game rule, for example if it doesn't have any legal targets. 4. Resolving. A spell or ability that is countered is put into its owner's graveyard and none of its effects occur. When a spell or ability resolves, its effects occur in the order they are written, but we'll go into more detail on that later. The most recent spell or ability on the stack will be the first spell or ability to resolve when both players pass priority in succession without taking an action. There is no way to keep your opponent from being able to respond to your spell or ability. Even if you keep casting spells or activating abilities, if you want them to resolve, you eventually have to pass priority to your opponent. Thanks for checking out this episode of Mystical Tutor. We hope to see you next time.